So this is the 1st Brigade plaque consisting of Brigadier General Alexander Schimmelpfennig, Colonel George von Amsberg, the 82nd Illinois, 45th, 157th New York, 61st Ohio, and 74th Pennsylvania. Okay, let's talk about this a wee bit. So, it's getting windy, so if Jens can't hear me, there's nothing I can do. So I'm going to talk really loud because I'm a Yinzer and I'm Italian and I'm going to start screaming. All right, so here we go. So we got General Howard. So he's the Corps commander. He is an American. He's a Native American, which means he is prejudiced against my German ancestors. He is commanding the 11th Corps. Now you got below him General Karl Schurz. Okay, Karl Schurz is from Germany. Now Karl Schurz, now there's a little connection between Karl Schurz and my ancestors. A little bit of a side note. My great-great-grandfather, Charles Riebel, his German name is Karl Riebel. Karl is from the 3rd Division Commander, Karl Schurz. Now, to give a little bit of a brief explanation to you, the wind is picking up because of the warm air, of course, coming up from the north, or down from the south, probably. So anyway, they arrived here on July 1st, 1863, about 1 p.m. Now, this plaque, mind you, was made, I would say, in the early 20th century. So it's an approximate, it's not specifically detailed. It's not like, oh, it's 100% accurate. From my readings, the 1st Brigade of the 11th Corps, or the 1st Brigade, 3rd Division of the 11th Corps arrived at about approximately 11 to 11:30 a.m. July 1st. But regardless, let's just talk about it a little bit. They advanced to connect with the right of the 1st Corps on Oak Hill, but was met with a heavy artillery and musketry fire. So let me just show you a wee bit what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to go out to the field and I'm going to present to Jens what that means. But before I do, I'm going to tell Jens a little bit about the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division. Now, the 11th Corps primarily was known as the German Corps because it primarily consisted of German recruits from Germany, like German immigrants. So when they came to the United States, they wanted to serve in the Union during the Civil War. And so they primarily consisted of the 11th Corps. Now, the thing is that General Howard, who's commanding the 11th Corps, he doesn't like the fact that he's commanding German immigrants because he's a Native American. He's very prejudiced. So he is very mad about this. So regardless, he is then designated the commander of the Army of the Potomac. Because remember, John Reynolds was shot and killed. He is the commander. He is the supreme commander of the Army of the Potomac on the other side of the field, so the 1st Corps. So when Reynolds is killed, Howard is designated the commander of the Army. So here's what happens. Karl Schurz, the guy I was talking about, he is now commanding the 11th Corps. He is now in charge of the Corps. So right now, he was the 3rd Division commander. He's now promoted to the Corps commander. And then Alexander Schimmelpfennig is then commanding the 3rd Division. So as you can see, when things happen, you have to improvise and the ranks, and you have to jump up through the ranks, and you have to command bigger units and bigger bodies of men when circumstances arise like it did on July 1st, 1863. But what is the significance of this landscape, and what is this? What am I pointing to right here? Well, that's Oak Hill. So right now, I'm going to show you, I don't know if you can see with the sun. Nah, it's actually pretty good. So anyway, right here is where my German ancestors are consisting. This is where they are primarily located in. So this is Howard's Corps. So Howard, when he arrives into Gettysburg, on the morning of July 1st, 1863, he then stations Steinwehr's division on Cemetery Hill as a fallback position in order, if they need to retreat, if the Union has to retreat back into the town, which it did, they have a fallback position on Cemetery Hill, which was a genius move because it actually happened. So you got Ewell's Corps of the Confederates. They're on Oak Hill. So Ewell decides to push down onto Howard's 11th Corps, which is my German ancestor Henrik Christian. So they advanced down onto this position right here. So right where I'm standing is where the fighting happens. It's like in this general vicinity. Now, here's the thing. Don't think that these markers and these statues are exactly the exact precise locations of the men during the battle, because that's fake. That's not true. They could have been at here. They could have been back here. I mean, it's a general approximate location. You don't really know the specifics about it. They could have been right there. They could have been up there. But regardless, the 11th Corps was supporting and connecting the 1st Corps. So they arrived through the town. Now, to give a little bit of a backstory on this, the weather right now is beautiful. It's like 70 degrees right now. But here's the thing. On July 1st, 1863, the weather was not like this. It was not gorgeous. It was horrible. It was humidity because early in the morning, about, I'd say 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, maybe 6, 7, 8 o'clock, it rained. So what happens when it rains in July? The rest of the day is humid and awful. So when the men are running up here in their wool uniforms with all of their gear, the 11th Corps is running all the way from Maryland to the border of Maryland, all the way north to get to Gettysburg, because there is a huge fight here, which we all know is Gettysburg. So they run through that humid air and humidity. It's approximately, let's say, 87 degrees in July. You're wearing all this gear, these wool uniforms. It's awful. So they set up here. So Schurz is now commanding the 11th Corps. Schurz tells his German commanders, probably in German, because, you know, you're going to speak your native tongue and your mother's tongue to convey messages clearly and directly. He then tells his commanders, he says, get out here and connect with the 1st Corps and let's go. So basically what's happening is the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division, my ancestor and his comrades, they then set up here. So they're setting up here and they're firing, boom, at the Confederates. The Confederates are right there. They're literally right there. It was reported that in the book that I read about the 11th Corps, that you could read the battles on the Confederate battle flag in Northern Virginia. You could read the, like, Manassas and Chancellorsville. You could read the names. That's how close the men were to each other when they're firing, when they're shooting. So they're practically standing like right here, boom, shooting at each other. It's absolute chaos. So the Confederates have artillery on Oak Hill, and they're pounding this line. Boom, boom. Cannons, artillery fire, infantry fire, and it's a back and forth struggle. This is an open plain, as you can see. This is about how it looked on July 1st, 1863. There is no cover out here. There is no defensive. There's no defensive supports or places you can hide. You can't hide out here. You can't duck. You can't say, "Oh, I'm gonna go jump into a trench," or "I'm gonna hide behind this boulder," like Little Round Top. Nah. You're out here, and you got to take the fire. And reports from the officers said that it was a hot fire, meaning that there is shit flying through the sky. There are bullets and shells and grape shot flying everywhere. So Page's battery is up there, and it's firing onto not only the 1st Corps, but also the 11th Corps. And I'm giving a general summary, so don't hold me accountable and say, well, Logan, no. Give it a general summary. Well, here's what happens. Well, where's the 11th Corps artillery? Well, before the infantry came here in the morning of July 1st, before the infantry arrived, one artillery unit arrived before the major amount of the Corps. Well, that is Battery I, 1st Ohio Artillery, led by Captain Hubert Dilger. Dilger's Battery. Well, I'm going to be talking a little wee bit more about Dilger's Battery down there. So if you just want to give me a sec, I'm going to talk about more of the infantry units here at the Battle of Gettysburg while I get to Dilger, because it's a very interesting story. But this right here, to give us some brief summary, is where my 4th grade grandfather and his comrades fought face to face, basically standing very close, shooting at each other at the Confederates in the 11th Corps. This is where they fought on July 1st, 1863, when the Confederates were coming down Oak Hill. It's fantastic. It gives me chills to think about it. So continuing my first video, or my first couple videos from the north side of Gettysburg, I'm going to continue it. This is Dilger's Battery. This is the Battery I, 1st Ohio Artillery, 6 12-pounders, Captain Hubert Dilger commanding. So here's what's very cool about this battery. Well, this is the one battery that was with my 4th grade grandfather in the 74th Pennsylvania and the 1st Brigade to the 3rd Division. Well, they were part of that area, that square mile area. Captain Hubert Dilger was from Germany. And while they're dueling with Page's battery on Oak Hill, the Confederates and Dilger are battling. Before that, Dilger, or just call him Dilger, he runs out. He's the first piece of the 11th Corps, well, maybe not the first piece, but one of the first pieces of the 11th Corps to run out into basically no man's land and start interacting with the Confederates on Oak Hill. So during the course of that artillery barrage and that artillery duel, Dilger sights the artillery piece with his own eye, fires it, I would say about a half a mile away. And they look at their binoculars and they look and they say, there's no explosion. What the hell happened? And Dilger says, I plugged it at the muzzle. Here's what that means. He fired a shell with his own eye. He sighted it by himself, shot it across the field, and plugged the artillery piece on the Confederate side on Oak Hill in the muzzle. Fired it literally directly in here and plugged it. Not only did they destroy many artillery pieces and many caissons, they also killed many of the horses, and sadly, that's not a good thing, but they did, because you need horses for transportation. This wind, man. And so they killed the horses, which means that they can't pull the caissons, they can't pull the artillery pieces. Dilger absolutely decimated Page's battery. They decimated him. He did such a fantastic job